right. Welcome to Growing E-commerce. I'm your host, Mike Ryan.
And I'm
With
Chris,
me today,
still Chris. No change there. No
yes,
change there.
our running jokes here. We're so funny and people love us, Chris.
Yeah,
Um,
I hope so, I hope so.
I missed our last studio date because I wasn't feeling well, and Chris almost jumped in for a monologue, but he just couldn't get past the haunting specter of having to do uh, the intro by himself.
The intro was the intro and outro was the blocker, you know? I had some topics on my mind. I just didn't feel ready for this one, man.
Listen, it's job security for me. I know that you can't get rid of me because you can't do the podcast intro without me.
You got me on this one, mate.
Uh, all right, so we've got a couple of ideas in mind here today. Let's see how far we get. We want to talk about some hot topics that have been coming up in our talks with clients lately. That we're into kind of what we call QBR season, doing a lot of business reviews and looking at the past year and the year ahead with our clients. So, I want to talk about some of the themes coming up there, and we let's see how long that takes, but we may go into some other stuff too.
The first one has some potential to maybe, be enough for the whole episode, but let's see.
Let's find out. Why don't you kick us off, Chris?
Sure.
What's good? What are you hearing lately? Or
Man,
what's not?
as you said, I mean, to the ones who don't know us as a company, Smart E-commerce is one of the bigger performance marketing agencies slash SaaS providers in Europe, and we're working with mid-sized to really big enterprise clients, mostly in online retail. And as Mike said, now especially Q3 probably the most stressful quarter for us in terms of meeting our clients, and we have our quarterly business reviews mostly in Q3, getting prepared for the high season in Q4. And I had the chance to talk again to a lot of high level representatives of our clients, and yeah, try to understand what's on their mind. And I think there are a couple of things which might be super obvious, but it's still you know um, showed that there's a lot of uncertainty going on. Doesn't matter if you talk to a company spending, I don't know, 10 million on a monthly basis into Google, or to a smaller client spending, I don't know, 50 grand into Google. The uncertainty with regards to AI, what's going on the Google side, but not just on Google, ChatGPT, Perplexity, um, what's going on there, and this uncertainty. And because I really tried to pin that down in the talks I had with our clients, is very much directed towards the question: okay, if there are these shopping assistants now popping up, what's going on with the search behavior of the clients of our clients, and what does that mean for me as an online retailer, especially with regards to my data structure? What do I have to provide to Google, Perplexity, and so forth in order to be served? And there's a lot of uncertainty going on. I think we have some ideas, of course, what can and should be done, but this is a very dominant topic beside others. But maybe we can touch that later. This uncertainty around data, and how is it served by this new wave of search behavior tied to this AI disruption going on. That's one very dominant topic.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely like how are end consumers changing the way that they search, and then how is Google tackling that? How can our businesses tackle that? I agree. It's stuff that we've gone in this direction a bit before on the show, but I think things continue to change and firm up, or we realize how ambiguous other things are. Um, like I recently did a couple of FAQs with some clients. I also like published an FAQ online on our blog about ads and AI surfaces, just what we know and what we don't know at this point. And there's more things that we don't know than what we do know.
Yes.
And often Google's answers here are very fluffy and need someone to decode them or just cut through to what is the core message here. So that's something that comes up as well.
That's for sure. And to all our listeners who are running their online shops, again, I think it's not really tied to the size, because what I can tell you guys is that it's still so fresh that even the big players, like with the big watches, with the big teams, there's no strategy in place. There's some uncertainty, of course, is dragging them down a bit in terms of, okay, there's probably also risk tied to it. But I've always been tried to be rather optimistic and wrong than being pessimistic and right. I think there's also a lot of chances now, baked into this whole uncertainty, because the players who will be the most advanced, who will be willing to test, um, in an agile way, I think there's a lot of ground to be made up, and that's what I try to bring across to our clients. Um, but for sure, the uncertainty is big, because let's face it, Mike. I mean, we talked about that. Even Google doesn't know precisely. For instance, how do the ads in AI mode really perform? Um, yeah, this is certainly very, very dominant.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, it's one of those moments of probably creative destruction, where
Yeah, sure.
a lot of the way that these channels have worked or the way that businesses have done are going to be in one degree or another upended and replaced with something new. And but again, it's a chance for us to adapt. That's what we do as human beings, as life forms, as intelligent beings in particular. You know, we should be able to adapt and evolve. But of
Yeah,
course, it's a stress moment. But yeah, I mean, like one of these things that pops up when you were talking about data earlier, like I think an emerging trend or phrase here that's coming out is this idea of data density. And um, we see, for example, that like Google is telling us that when they serve ads adjacent to AI surfaces or inside of AI surfaces, they're not just going to consider the classic stuff like the ad copy and its relevance to the landing page and the relevance to the search query or the prompt in this case, if you're in AI mode, but also they need to consider relevance to the AI content itself, which is a huge
yes,
wild card because
yes.
I think it's very non-deterministic and out of anyone's hands directly what the AI is going to say. Um, and this is like, you know, I mean, organic search was always algorithmic. It was always determined by Google's ranking systems and all this stuff. Um, but this is really, I think that Google even had a system called Rank Brain, but now we're getting a new kind of brain in the mix here.
Yeah,
And the challenge is that to achieve data density or like a critical mass of data, is imagine that someone is having a chat with an AI bot, and the AI, like, in order for it to surface results organically, also for paid listings to serve, there needs to be a lot of specific information available. So this will touch on all sides of your business. Like you need that structured data that your SEO people are responsible for. You need the rich landing page content that your ecom teams are responsible for. You need like really great, detailed, accurate, up to date feed
yes,
information. Then you need to think that your business data is in there for your campaign steering as well. On top of that, and you also need great creatives and assets. I mean,
yeah,
it's just all these kind of a perfect storm of the things that are needed all coming
it,
together.
yes. It's a perfect storm, and the big question. Maybe we can jump to one or two other topics. Our clients are really, we'll call focusing on, right now or going into 2026. One major question is, of course, what type of data, and how do I have to change my current data strategy? I mean, I was in Dublin at Google, for a couple of days, and I mean, the first insights I got from, okay, how does AI mode, change the search behavior? Uh, is there already some insights to be made? And Google was very vague, maybe rightfully so, because they don't know probably in detail, as of now. But one stat a stat which stood out is that the average search query, logged in Google, in AI mode, is 2.5x longer than the search query logged into the standard Google search. 2.5x longer. So I think that the search query will change completely, and that has to be reflected in your data strategy. And it's really a perfect storm. But again, Mike, I think a big chance. Another topic, by the way, and this is a big one. This certainly could also be enough for a whole episode. Increasing CPCs. It's really, I think we can be politically. I mean, there's no I can swear here, right? Like it's a fucking pain in the ass. Sorry, it's already increasing CPCs are really a massive issue, and I think the increasing CPCs, I call them business destroyer.
Mm,
It's really potentially cutting the throats of especially businesses with paper thin margin wiggle room in the first place, and the CPC increases are just, I know they vary from industry to industry, but on average, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Um, and of course, the topic, because this is directly impacting top and bottom line.
mm.
What's your take on that, Mike?
I mean, I tend to I tend to be not too alarmist on CPC trends because in the past I've often found like you'll see a lot of reports out there saying that CPCs are growing at these huge rates.
Mm,
Uh, and when I look at the big picture, I mean I think there are always examples in specific verticals and
mhm,
markets and combinations thereof and business models inside of that these things can there's a huge amount of variance where
mhm,
things can happen. But I've typically seen that over the past years, CPC is not that different than inflation, and inflation has been high the past few years. It's been a pain,
mhm, mhm.
but yeah, I've been called into a couple cases recently, and that are pretty alarming. Businesses that were forecasting and planning with, say, 8% CPC inflation this year, which is a lot, to be frank. Like, that's
Yes.
I mean, you wouldn't be happy about 8% consumer inflation,
No,
consumer price
no,
inflation.
no.
And seeing, getting into their key categories, and you see, that in certain campaign types and category combinations, there's inflation at 30%, and then I go and I look at their peers and stuff like that to try to see what's going on, and I see that, no, this is not an aberration, it's not just them alone, but there there are these whole groups facing these kind of forces,
Mhm.
so, I mean, I think the only consolation in that is that their competitors are facing these challenges as well,
Sure,
but,
sure.
it's outrageous some of what we've seen this year.
Yep, it's really outrageous, and, the more important it gets to really squeeze, to, I don't know, to apply this 1% rule, every leverage you have, applied, because it really can make the difference, compared to your competitor. Because as you said, it's never a specific story to one online shop. It's rather the industry or maybe the whole online retail market suffering from these increasing CPCs. So this is certainly a very dominant topic. And by the way, I had a very, because if you zoom out a bit, I think it's very interesting. I had, like said, I was at Google in Dublin, and they had Europe headquarters, and I had a very good conversation with a really high Google representative, and I talked with him about, the increasing CPCs and what does it do, especially, to the German market, what I see. And I think Google really, from a strategic perspective, I think Google really has to be very careful here, because man, I tell you, a lot of online retailers are just running out of money, and or are just not able to invest that money into a channel which is just not working for them anymore. So I think the good thing might be, Mike, I don't know how you see it, but maybe Google, of course, has a deep interest in of course making a channel Google work for the clients, because at the end of the day, they would be willing to move the money somewhere else if
Yeah,
if Meta is working better for them. It's really interesting to me, and I think we really have some risk that this mid-sized players, especially where the
mm,
watches are just not that deep, that they
yeah.
will really think about, is Google the right channel for me anymore?
That's for sure, and, particularly if competing channels come up, and they start trying to compete on a cost basis.
For
Um,
sure.
But, like, there's often these conspiratorial statements toward Google as if Google is increasing the CPCs on purpose to maximize their profits, and I don't really believe that, like, we
Me
know I
neither.
mean, there's these leaked emails about shaking the cushions and things like that, so I think overall this is a yield optimization strategy that they go for, um, and they have to they can't just squeeze the life out. It's like when you're infected with a virus or something like that. You're going
Mhm.
to get sick, but not sick enough that you're, critically ill. That's then the virus is not if we just now I'm comparing Google to a virus. This is going down a certain way. But
This will be a fun one.
but listen, like, yeah, Google does play some games with CPCs, but these are on the margins. These are
Yeah,
these are in low, competition auctions and stuff like that. They're looking at the floors. They wanna make sure that their floors are high enough that they can make
yeah.
certain margins on all their auctions, even these less populated auctions, and I'm making that statement as neutral of a way as I can make it, but overall, like so I won't say that Google has never touched CPCs, but they're not responsible for
No,
runway 30% CPC. This is something that's happening at a market level, at an auction level, and I think their engineers need to look at that and see if they can bring it under control. You're not just, like, smiling to the bank over there.
exactly. And of course, I mean, the whole thing Google tries to do now is AI enabled to just make the fit between the search query, the consumer, and the offering of an online shop just, fit even better than it currently does. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I think every online retailer could live with higher CPCs as long as the conversion rate,
Yeah.
behaves accordingly. I think you're absolutely right. Google certainly doesn't play this game. Might have been some, I don't know, fishy emails for sure. But
Mm,
again, I think also based on this conversation I had with this Google rep, high level rep, I think Google is really genuinely interested in to make this work. Not just for the big enterprise players. They know how important this backbone of online retail of the online retail world is, and we're talking about this mid-sized online shops. So really Google understands, Mike, you said you talked about that a couple of minutes ago. Alternatives will pop up. So I think Google has this certain pressure to make this work. And yeah, so yeah, a tricky topic. I think
mm.
that's it.
Yeah, I mean, and just to close the loop back to the AI ads for one sec, I mean, something that I'm a little concerned about in the future is that Google is making pretty weird statements about click-through rates, in these contexts with AI services
They're not
where
important anymore, right?
yeah, they're telling you, like people ask, do click-through rates drop? And Google's official answer is, "You shouldn't worry about click-through rate, you should worry about your conversion rate and stuff like that." Which, I mean, on the one hand, that's kinda true, but
It-
it's also like saying, like, "Don't look here, look over there." And to me, it's implicitly this answer that, yes, click-through rates, are lower when AI answers are adjacent.
Yes,
And so we have this sense that people might lose some of their organic traffic, to AI overviews and place things like this, that they might have a higher dependency. Like, I think that the advertiser demand for paid traffic is gonna trend up, if anything, and if the click-through rate is trending down, it creates a picture where potentially, CPCs could be quite high in these
yes,
new contexts,
yes.
that and it's always a thing, if the value per click, the revenue per click
That's it.
matches and is proportionate, that's okay, but we're seeing advertisers with 30% rising CPCs, and their value per click is not rising 30%. So that's the problem.
That's the problem here, yeah. And to a certain degree, this is in the responsibility of Google, of course, to make this work. The whole ecosystem has to work. And of
When
course,
they're responsible for, like, 90% of the bidding, and their bidding is supposed to ensure the ratio
yeah,
between conversion value and costs, then yeah,
yeah.
they are responsible.
And yet again, I mean, I think every online retailer has to understand that I mean the things we preach, Mike, every day, probably twice a day, that yes, there's a certain thing Google controls, and I think they have genuine interest to make this work. But don't be lazy, right? As an online retailer, go for every leverage you have. Don't fully trust Google. Think about the campaign structure. Think about your first party data to inject who you're working with. Do you really have the right team? Do you need external support? I think that there's a lot of chances also baked into this situation right now. However, increasing CPCs, big topic. Mike, maybe we can talk about that in more detail in one of the other episodes
Yeah,
next
I mean,
time.
I think so. I can probably put together some CPC data and,
Will be highly interesting. Huh?
yeah, like, rather so it's some higher level data, um, for sure. I mean, do you wanna talk about, any of these? I have to respect your time box here, Chris. Do we have time to talk about some of these other topics, or?
For sure, I'm pumped about it. I mean, may I ask you a question?
Yeah.
If you were running an online shop right now, what skills does the perfect online marketing PPC manager has to have in order to be valuable from the get go and also valuable, let's say, in 1 year, 2 years from now?
Yeah, I think that's a
That's a
doozy
tricky
question.
question, huh?
Yeah. It's pretty hard right now just because things are changing so much, and the direction of travel is not always clear because 2 years ago, some of these sort of old school skills like search reviewing, like search term mining or doing
Mm,
negative keywording and stuff like that. These seemed, yeah, they seemed a bit outdated or less relevant. Um, and yet now these capabilities are back inside of some of these campaigns. And so you really, it's so hard because you need someone. It's great when you have some of that old school knowledge, but also you c there's things changed a lot, like, in the last 5 years, and there's different technologies available, and, different ways of working with that kind of data. So, you I just think in general, it's hard to know what's gonna be happening in 2 years from now. I think it's always a bit hard to say that, but it's much harder right now.
yes.
Um, and I look at some kind of general skills. That's why I think about things like, um, analytical thinking, and also, like, system thinking, and these are sort of potentially kind of fluffy terms, and often
Mhm.
people think of analytical thinking, and they think of analytics like data and numbers. Analytical thinking is actually something different than that.
It's
It
way
doesn't
more than that.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be quantitative at all. It's about
Mhm,
being able to systematically dissect something, understand patterns, find insights, see how parts are are functioning and
mhm,
interconnecting, and then system thinking, on the other hand, is taking this much higher level view and connecting the dots across like a much bigger picture. Um, and I think right now these are probably tough to interview for,
yes.
it but if you find people with these competencies, like, you need to find someone who's going to be able to learn and adapt themselves regardless of what's happening in the next couple of years. You don't want someone that's gonna be too narrow in their way of thinking or their skill set, fossilized. It's a very important time. Like, this is also why there's a lot of discussion right now, and I think there's some truth to it, that juniors are disadvantaged on the job market because of some entry level roles becoming more automated through AI. Seniors are maybe advantaged, but I'll also say that that's a temporary situation because, um, younger people have much more plasticity in their learning. They're also coming up with this
Mhm,
technology. It's not so new to that, like, it's new to everyone, but they're just in a different part of their life. And so I think that it's very short term to have any kind of prejudice against juniors in the team. I actually think that that's a smarter bet. You need people who can learn and be trained on new things and not be so fossilized. I think we also need the blend of experience. So it's it's really tricky. I don't know. I could also get into maybe some more specific skills, but what are you thinking, Chris?
yeah, I mean, look, I mean, we are looking for talent basically all the time. And just the other day, I had a session with our HR department to really discuss in detail what type of person we are looking for right now. And I'm referring to open positions in the online marketing space, basically our client customer success managers,
Yeah.
which is maybe in terms of requirements comparable to an online marketing manager on the client side somehow. And man, it's really tough to nail it down, like this classical skill thinking, which
Mhm.
was perfectly fine 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Google Ads know-how. Yes
Yeah.
or no. I think we're way beyond that. And I mean, so plus one on everything you said. Um, and one thing which constantly comes across my mind is I think, especially now in with regards to all this AI disruption on the big and small stages of the world, I think you really need to have a person who is, and this is maybe even more cheesy than your statements, Mike, but I really think you need a person who is not afraid of getting in touch with AI and automation, uh, understanding the principle, which is it's not replacing me or my role, it's empowering what I do. And I can tell you in all the talks I have with on the marketing managers on the client side, customer success managers on our side, if you have a person who is not buying into this principle, I think this person won't make it
Yeah.
in terms of really being the valuable asset you're looking for as a team lead of an online marketing team or an owner of an online shop. So how open is this person to the things which are happening now? Doesn't matter if the person buys into
Mhm.
into that yes or no. How geeky this person is, right?
Yeah.
Is the person able to apply new tools, test new tools, whether it's NADN, Opal, AI Studios, all from Google, all the things which are popping up right now. I think you need the gigginess and I know this openness and understanding that this is leveraging what I do. It's not replacing. Uh,
Yeah. I
this is probably on meta level the things I would look at most. Next
yeah.
to cultural fit, of course, but yeah.
I I I I agree with that. Like, I think people talk about interpersonal collaboration a lot, and that remains important, but, like, as a soft skill, but we are also now talking about, like,
Yes.
human machine collaboration
Yes.
too.
Yes.
And
For
it's
sure.
in some ways like interacting with a person. It can feel that way because of the human-like elements that these bots are
Yep.
imbued with, but it is fundamentally different and, um, and kinda weird. And I find it frustrating sometimes because sometimes I feel like I'm dealing with an A player, and sometimes I feel like, "How stupid is this effing
How
machine?"
stupid are you?
And it's just it's just hard to do that, and it takes learning and this weird kind of compassion, if that's the right word. Like, you need or patience, I don't know it, but
Yes.
it's
But this
yeah,
I mean, what you're referring to, I mean, look, and this is why the whole landscape is changing so dramatically. Um, the interpersonal skills, of course, something every company is looking at, for sure. But as a matter of fact, man, you said it. You have to have this interpersonal machine relationship related skills now because they are not always A players. You know that, Mike.
yeah,
Exactly what you described now. You have to be patient. You have to trust in the process. You have to be able to learn the AI program because sometimes they're fucking juniors. I really think it's a very very important skill set. I mean, the question is how you test this skill because this is the
mm,
the challenge for us right now. I mean, and our HR department is really looking into this. What are the best practices and so forth. It's not that easy to really dig into this skill set and try to find out does the person have the skills, yes or no. But certainly a big change in I think a big change in the prototype. Uh,
yeah,
the online marketing manager of 5 years, the skills that this person had, it has so much changed. It's crazy actually. It's really crazy.
yeah. I agree.
Oh
And
yeah,
I don't wanna the domain knowledge remains important. I don't wanna sidestep it too much,
and
but yeah,
1000%. But I see here at Smack we have so many great peoples. But you see the difference. People are really into this thing and say, okay, this is now enabling me. This is a personal assistant I have at my hands now. Let's work with this assistant. And there are some people who are more hesitant, and I really think that the people who see this as a chance and have this giginess to work with it, to I think these people will outperform the others. That's for sure. Mike,
Um,
we have a couple of minutes left. I mean,
okay, hold on. I'm gonna just drop a little teaser. Okay, maybe some stuff that we'll be talking about soon.
let's go.
Um, yeah. So I've been working a lot recently, and we've talked a little bit about this on some past episodes too. I've been looking a lot at AI Max and demand gen. Yeah, I I'm trying to understand Google's new Power Pack. I had a Power Pack monologue while you were out one time, Chris, um, but this goes miles deep, and um, you know for example, I've got a data set. It's still early days, but I've got a data set of about 300 AI Max campaigns where I'm crunching the numbers. Because in the past, we are talking about things that I observed in single campaigns, and I'm not comfortable with that situation either. I mean, or it's interesting, but it's anecdotal. So I'm looking at some bigger stuff. I'm really trying to dig into the economics of demand gen, and so yeah, I think there's some exciting data stories coming up ahead on the show, and I'm getting way in front of things here, but I loved working on the state of PMAX report this year, and I we might be looking at like state of demand
Great.
gen, state of AI Max next year. So let's see.
Yes, that's what I wanted to hear. And ladies and gents, all the stuff Mike works on, sometimes I really don't know more than you, the listeners. So I'm really curious about the data, Mike. When
Yeah.
do I mean, do you have something on your mind when this rich analysis with regards to IMAX, and then when do you think is it ready to be
Um,
shared on this lovable podcast?
I could share. I'm sure next episode I can share a couple of stats and stuff like that. But it takes, honestly, I work on these things iteratively over a long period, and then that's how this stuff gets born into one of those big reports. But I also there's a lot of analyses I did for PMAX that I know I can do here. I mean, I'll tell you right now, we're seeing that AI Max is being adopted in about 13 to 15% of accounts. The
Mhm.
adoption level is low within these accounts. People are still testing, but it's being tested in about yeah, 10 to 15% of accounts, let's say. And it's pretty impressive because just a few months ago, it was at less than 1%. And I think Google is going to get a decent level of adoption decently fast here.
Mhm.
Um, we certainly see a difference since it went general availability in October. Last month.
That will be an interesting episode, Mike. Really looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
Mike,
Let's wrap it up.
let's wrap it up.
All right.
Outro time.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of Growing E-commerce. Growing E-commerce is brought to you by Smarter E-commerce, also known as SMEC. You can learn more at smarter-ecommerce.com. And as always, please leave us a review, share the podcast with a friend. We really appreciate it. I think
See you
that's it.
soon.
See you next time.
All right,
Bye.
guys.